Okay guys, so this is more of an advanced video, and it's very possible we didn't get to this in class this week, and I'm actually going to cover this topic next week, but if you're curious, um, how local density works when using curves. So here I have an example of an image. The image is being lit from the opposite side, so the front of the building to me right now is under. The density is too low compared to the density of the sky. If I basically grabbed a curve adjustment layer and I increase the density, the problem with doing this is, although the building is correct, it's where I want it to be, but the sky now is too bright relative, and I'm starting to lose detail. If I look at my info panel, I'm at 255, 254, 253. Now, I've left this image in color just to show you guys ultimately what happens to a color image. Just the RGB values won't be the same, and that's normal because you're going to have different wavelengths of light being picked up and variations, and that's how we're going to get color ultimately in an image. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a concept of masking um, to make this ultimately a local adjustment. So a mask is a way to hide an adjustment. Because the adjustment applies to the entire image, I want to basically just hide it in a given area. So what I'll do is I'll adjust my curve to where I want it to be for the front of the building, and then I'm going to hide the adjustment in the sky. Every adjustment layer has this white box. Let me just rename that density. And the white box is ultimately the mask. And if I hold down Option and click on that, what I get is an actual preview what the mask looks like on the image. It's a white box. Now, the way this works is white reveals and black conceals. So if the mask is white, it's showing the entire adjustment on the entire image. What I'm going to use is the brush tool, and the brush tool shortcut is B, and it's over here above the clone stamp. And what I'm going to do is hit D. D on the keyboard when you're in the brush tool defaults your foreground background colors. So your foreground background color is here, D. There's a square in the front and a square on the back. The square in the front is the foreground color. Square in the back is the background color. It's useful to have two colors loaded in this case so that I can switch between them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to black. Now I'm going to press X on my keyboard. You can also press this tiny wee little arrow here, and that's going to switch back and forth. What I want to do is I want to paint black on the mask, and that's going to hide the adjustment. In this case, it's going to hide the adjustment from the sky because I've deemed that the sky is too bright. So, brush, black, I'm going to increase the size of my brush. It's the same shortcut key as increasing the size of the brush in the clone stamp. And watch what happens when I just paint across the sky in black. Now, I just went across the image. What that has done, and if I look at my mask, is it's painted black across the mask. So I'm going to turn that preview off. And it's saying to the adjustment layer, hide the adjustment, so hide that curve adjustment in the area that's black on the mask. Okay, so what I'm ultimately doing is hiding the adjustment in the sky because I don't want to have the sky that bright relative to the building. I want to keep it kind of dark. I like the gradation. I like the variation in tone. Now, you may not have noticed when I held down Shift, the brush actually went from one point to another, but it also kind of came through and applied it onto the building. And I'm going to make that a little more extreme. See? That's not what I want. So let's back up a step. So remember we talked about brush hardness when we're talking about cloning. Same thing with the actual brush tool. If I right click on this, I'm at 0% hardness, which basically means my brush is the softest it can be. So when I click, what ends up happening is you'll notice that the area gets affected from the outside of the circle, and that's because it's trying to blend that in. So first of all, I'm going to decrease my hardness, or increase my hardness rather. I'm going to hold down Shift and use the square bracket keys, which should get me 25% increments. So if I press it once, it'll go to 25% hardness. You notice that the brush is actually changing its size a little bit. It just does that. If I right click, you can see I'm at 25. I'm going to go to 50% hardness. And we can see the edge is a little bit harder and a little more contained. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to decrease my brush. And I'm going to then show the adjustment on the building, white brush. And then I'm just going to clean up that edge of the building itself. There we go. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to fix it up here as well. Now you notice that I, made a little mistake here. And this is a bit confusing at first because I'm showing and hiding the adjustment as I go. That's why I'm switching between black. The nice thing about this, when you're masking, all you're ultimately doing is just hiding pixels. Okay. If I make a mistake, I can go back and fix something. If I decide that I want to actually come through and change that on my building, I can. I'm showing the adjustment, or I can ultimately, or in this case, I'm hiding the adjustment, now I'm showing it. Um, that's masking. But that's how you guys can actually take a global adjustment and apply it locally. Now, as I said, this is a bit of an advanced concept, and we're going to expand further on local adjustments in Photoshop, but there you go. That is a local density adjustments.